The courtroom froze the second she entered. Wrapped in designer silk, sunglasses worn indoors, she walked as if the ground itself had been hired to hold her up. She didn't wait for permission, didn't wait to be seated, didn't even look at the judge with respect. With a slow, poisonous smirk, she said, "I don't take orders from bargain bin judges." The gallery erupted in stunned gasps. The bailiff's hand twitched toward his belt. Judge Judy's pen paused, the kind of pause that means somebody's life is about to change. But the rich woman didn't catch the shift. She couldn't feel the temperature of the room dropping. Not yet, because moments later, the same woman who strutted in like she owned the building was screaming as metal handcuffs slammed around her wrists. The insult still clung to the air like smoke from a fuse that had just been lit. Vivienne Kane hadn't simply disrespected the court. She had declared war on it. The courtroom absorbed her words in stunned silence, every set of eyes widening as if the temperature had dropped 10 degrees in an instant. Vivienne stood there, wrapped in shimmering designer silk, sunglasses still glued to her face, radiating so much self-importance that the wood panels themselves seemed to recoil. Judge Judy didn't react immediately. She didn't need to. The power in that room didn't come from theatrics. It came from the stillness she held like a blade. Her pen remained frozen mid-air, blue ink pooling at the tip, a single drop threatening to fall. When she finally lifted her gaze, the shift in energy was so subtle and so sharp that even the gallery felt it. People leaned in, breaths thin, waiting for the explosion they knew was coming. "Miss Kane." Judge Judy said softly, so softly that the softness itself was a threat. "You will take your seat." Vivienne didn't move. Of course she didn't. She tilted her head the way someone might when examining a stain on expensive fabric. "Your Honor," she said, drawing out the title as if rolling it in dirt, "I'm not here to be disrespected. I'm here to correct an absurd, frankly offensive claim made by a nobody." Her hand flicked lazily toward the complainant, a small business owner named Marcus Hale, seated in the front row. Marcus shrank, his hands tightening around the folded papers in his lap. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. The bailiff took a single step forward, a quiet warning. Vivienne smirked at him too. "Relax, I'm not dangerous. I'm just surrounded by people with very small lives." Judge Judy's expression didn't change, but her eyes sharpened two cold, deliberate points of focus. "Miss Kane, remove your sunglasses." Vivienne blinked slowly. "Why?" "These cost more than everyone here makes in a month." "That," Judy replied, "is not a reason. That's an attitude, and I'm not interested in your attitude. Glasses off." A ripple of murmurs swept through the gallery. Vivienne let out an incredulous laugh. "Are you serious? This is ridiculous. I'm not a criminal. I don't have to follow petty rules designed for people who aren't you," Judy finished. For one breathtaking moment. Vivienne's smirk faltered dullly for a moment. "I'm not removing them," she said. Crossing her arms, Judge Judy's pen finally moved, jotting something down with chilling calm. "Very well." The tension ballooned so thick the room seemed to constrict around it. Then Judy looked up, her voice cool and unyielding. "Miss Kane, you have one more opportunity to comply before I escalate this matter." Vivienne opened her mouth to protest, to insult, to condescend, but she didn't get the chance. At that exact moment, the side door opened and the first witness stepped inside. Vivienne's smirk vanished the instant she saw who it was. Her confidence didn't just waver. It flickered. For the first time since she had strutted into the courtroom, uncertainty leaked into her eyes. The witness stepped forward, the soft thud of her shoes echoing across the quiet room. A young woman, maybe in her mid-20s, dressed simply but neatly. No jewelry, no designer labels, just steady hands and eyes that refused to look away from Vivienne. Judge Judy glanced at her clipboard. "State your name." "Emily Rhodes," the young woman said, her voice steady but threaded with something deeper. "History." Vivian scoffed. "Oh, this is adorable. You dragged her here for what? To complain that I wasn't her emotional support employer?" Emily didn't flinch. "I was your assistant for 2 years, Miss Kane." The gallery murmured not loudly, but enough to make Vivian stiffen. She straightened her blouse, flicked her hair back, and forced the smirk to return. "Well," she said, "I suppose the court needed entertainment." Judge Judy set her pen down. "Miss Rhodes, please explain your relationship to the case at hand." Emily inhaled slowly. "Marcus Hale, the complainant, hired Miss Kane to consult on a partnership deal. Instead, she intimidated him repeatedly." "I witnessed it," Vivian laughed, loud and brittle. "Witnessed? Oh, Emily, you were barely qualified to organize my calendar. Now you're fabricating events." Emily's gaze tightened. "You screamed at him. You called him Vivian," shot up from her chair. "That's a lie." "Sit," Judge Judy ordered, icy and immediate. Vivian sank back down. Her lips pressed so tightly together the color drained from them. Emily continued. "You called him a charity case with delusions of adequacy. And when he asked for adjustments to the contract, reasonable adjustments, you refused and threatened to ruin his business." The gallery erupted with whispers. Vivian forced a laugh that didn't land. "This is insane. She's exaggerating. She always was dramatic." Emily's voice cut through her. "You threw a glass at the wall because he corrected a number. You told me to fix the mess." Judge Judy raised a brow. "Is that true, Miss Kane?" Vivian swallowed. "Obviously not. I don't throw things. I have people to handle things for me." Judy leaned back. "Miss Kane, I need a serious answer." Vivian's jaw clenched hard before she managed, "No, it didn't happen." Judy made a note. "Miss Rhodes, continue." Emily paused. "The issue at the center of this case isn't just aggression. It's the contract itself." Vivian's hand twitched. Emily looked directly at her. "She altered it after Marcus signed." A hush dropped like a curtain. Even the bailiff shifted his stance. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. "Altered it how?" Emily swallowed. "She changed the exclusivity clause, added terms he never agreed to, then told him if he didn't comply, she'd bury him." Vivian's voice cracked. "You can't prove that." Emily reached into her folder. "Actually, I can." Vivian stiffened so sharply her sunglasses slid a fraction down her nose. Judge Judy leaned forward. "Approach." Emily stepped toward the bench, extending a document. Vivian shot up again. "You can't accept that. It's stolen property." "Sit," Judy commanded once more. Vivian sat, but this time her knees hit the chair too fast. Judge Judy lifted the document, scanned it, and then looked straight at Vivian. "Miss Kane, tell me why your signature appears twice, once in ink and once in printed copy." The contract in Judge Judy's hands trembled, not because the judge was shaken, but because Vivian was. For the first time, her confidence wasn't a shield. It was a mask hand. The mask was slipping. Judge Judy placed the altered contract on the bench with careful precision, the paper landing with a sound far too loud for its weight. The gallery held its collective breath. Marcus Hale stared at the floor, shoulders tight with years of swallowed frustration. Emily waited, hands clasped, as though preparing herself for whatever storm was about to break. Judy adjusted her glasses. "Miss Kane, 2 signatures, 1 original, 1 printed. Explain." A tease. Vivian's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her silence was louder than her arrogance had ever been. Emily exhaled shakily. "Your Honor, that second signature wasn't his." She added the clause after the fact. "Lies," Vivian snapped. her voice too sharp, too loud. She always hated me. She's just bitter I fired her. Emily didn't flinch. You fired me because I refused to alter the electronic file after you'd already changed the hard copy. Vivian leaned forward, venom dripping from every word. You refused because you're incompetent and you're reckless. Emily replied softly. That softness was what did it. Vivian recoiled, not physically, but emotionally, like someone who'd just been hit where it hurt most. Judge Judy tapped her pen once, a single crisp sound. Miss Rhodes, when did you leave Miss Kane's employment? 3 months ago. And you're willing to testify under oath that these alterations were done without Mr. Hale's knowledge? Yes, Your Honor. Vivian scoffed, but the sound cracked halfway through. Of course she is. She thinks this is her moment. Her little revenge arc. Emily didn't take the bait. It's not revenge. It's accountability. The room shifted. You could feel its truth beginning to carve its way out. Cutting through Vivian's polished exterior, Judge Judy studied the two women, her gaze sharp and deliberate. Then she asked, Miss Kane, is there anything you'd like to say before I continue? The question landed like a hammer. Vivian stood slowly, smoothing the silk of her blouse as if it could rebuild her dignity. She forced a smile wide, brittle, trembling at the edges. Your Honor, this girl is exaggerating. She always exaggerated. I run a very high-stress operation. If she couldn't handle the pressure, that's not my issue. And as for the contract, she shrugged. Negotiations evolve. People edit things. It's not a crime. It's business. Emily's eyes flickered with something between sadness and resolve. Marcus trusted you. You manipulated him. Vivian rolled her eyes dramatically. Oh, please, spare me the moral lecture. He should have read the fine print better. Marcus flinched. Judge Judy caught it. Miss Kane, she said, voice low and flinty, do you understand that altering a contract without consent is fraud? Vivian blinked hard. For a moment, fear surged behind her sunglasses. Raw and unpolished, but she shoved it down. Alleged fraud. No, Judy said. Documented fraud. Vivian's breath hitched. Judy turned to Emily. Miss Rhodes, there's mention of repeated patterns of abusive behavior. What exactly did you witness? Emily hesitated, a brief, painful pause. Do you want the full list, Your Honor? Vivian's head snapped toward her. You wouldn't dare. Emily nodded once. I would. The tension in the room tightened into a single coiled thread. Emily opened her mouth to speak. But Judge Judy raised a hand, stopping her. Her gaze locked onto Vivian with piercing clarity. Miss Kane, she said, before we go any further, is there something you want to tell the court? The question hung between them like a lit match held above gasoline. Vivian's jaw tightened. And then she combusted. I don't have anything to tell this court. She snapped, bolting upright so violently that her chair skidded back and hit the wall. The gallery jolted at the sudden noise. The bailiff stepped forward. Emily stiffened. Marcus held his breath. Judge Judy didn't move. Vivian's voice rose, sharp and electric. This entire proceeding is a circusopathetic, jealous attack on a woman who worked her entire life to rise above people like you. She pointed toward Marcus with a flick so dismissive it could have cut skin. He flinched. You're a nobody, she barked at him. A failing businessman with a victim complex. You begged for my help. You pleaded. You should be thanking me for giving you even 10 minutes of my time. Miss Kane, Judy started. But Vivian barreled over her. And you, she snarled. Turning on Emily are the most ungrateful, small-minded. Incompetent assistant I've ever wasted money on. You couldn't even alphabetize my files. Now you're pretending to be some kind of moral authority. she scoffed. A cruel, guttural sound. "You're pathetic." Emily's face stayed composed, but her hands trembled ever so slightly in her lap. The gallery murmured, energy rising like storm winds. Judge Judy tapped her gavel once. "Miss Kane, sit down." Vivian didn't. She took a step forward, voice climbing. "You don't get to silence me. This whole thing is beneath me. This court is beneath me. And you," she said, pointing directly at Judy, "are just another overhyped television judge playing God for an audience." The courtroom gasped. The bailiff moved again, this time more decisively, but Judy held up a hand. Her voice dropped low. "Miss Kane, you have exactly one breath left to pull yourself together." But Vivian wasn't capable of pulling anything together. She was unraveling in real time, threads of ego and fury snapping faster than she could catch them. "You think I care about your cheap gavel and your fake authority?" She spat. "I have influence, power, connections you wouldn't believe. People respect me, not you." Her voice cracked on the last word, but she pushed through it, breathless with rage. And as for that contract, it wasn't fraud. It was a correction. A correction he needed because he's too stupid to understand business. I made him a better deal than he deserved. Judge Judy arched a brow. "So, you did alter it." Vivian froze. The slip hung there, suspended, damning. "I know, I didn't mean." She stuttered, searching for footing that wasn't there. Judy lifted the contract again. "Then perhaps you can explain why Mr. Hale's signature is printed, not written." Vivian's chest rose and fell too quickly. The mask had shattered. What stood there now wasn't confidence. It was panic wearing expensive clothes. Before she could form an excuse, the clerk approached Judge Judy's bench. "Your Honor," he whispered, handing her a sealed folder. This was just submitted. Judge Judy's eyes sharpened as she accepted it. Vivian blinked rapidly. "What? What is that?" Judy didn't answer. She opened the folder. The room leaned in. Judge Judy's face shifted subtly but unmistakably as she looked up. "Miss Kane," she said, her voice edged with revelation, "the court has just received new evidence, and it concerns your behavior." The envelope lay between Judge Judy's fingers like a live wire. Vivian's color drained not dramatically, but in a slow, crawling fade. She sensed danger before she even knew what it was. Judge Judy pulled the contents from the folder, a small flash drive labeled with a neatly printed tag Rhodes. Her eyes flicked toward Emily. "Miss Rhodes," Judy said, "you submitted this." Emily nodded, clasping her hands to still their tremor. "Yes, Your Honor. I didn't know if it would be needed. But I recorded several interactions during my employment for my own safety." Vivian exploded. "You what?" "That is illegal. That is an invasion of privacy." Judy held up a hand. "Not in a workplace setting where there's no expectation of confidentiality. And certainly not when criminal behavior is alleged." Vivian froze at the phrase criminal behavior. Her mouth snapped shut. Judge Judy inserted the drive into the courtroom monitor. "Let's begin with just a short clip," she said quietly. "The court doesn't need theatrics, just the truth." For a moment, there was only the hum of the speakers warming up. Then Vivian's voice flooded the room, not the controlled, polished version everyone had heard until now. This was raw, unfiltered, venomous. "If he questions a single line in that contract again, I swear I will destroy him. Do you understand me? I don't lose to people who shop at discount stores." Gasps rippled across the gallery. The recording continued. "Fix his signature. It's not hard. If he can't play in the big leagues, I'll drag him there anyway." Vivian lurched forward. "That was taken out of context. She manipulated it." "Sit," Judy said without looking at her. Vivian sat, trembling. Emily stared down at her hands, her voice soft. I warned her again and again. She didn't listen. The recording kept playing. Vivian's voice only grew more vicious. People like him are meant to be stepped on. If he complains, let him. The law works for the powerful. Judge Judy pressed pause. Silence dropped with the weight of a verdict. Vivian's lip quivered for a fraction of a second, so quick it could have been imagined, but the room saw it. Everyone saw it. Miss Kane, Judy said slowly, was that your voice? Vivian swallowed. It was emotion, stress. People say things they don't mean under pressure. Marcus whispered, that wasn't pressure. Everyone heard him. Vivian snapped toward him. Shut your mouth. Enough, Judy said, firm and final. She picked up the flash drive's printed index list. It says here there are 11 more recordings, each time-stamped, each detailing your conduct. She looked straight at Vivian. Would you like the court to hear all 12? Vivian shook her head instinctively, the reality hitting her all at once. Each denial she might offer would now be crushed by her own documented voice. Judge Judy let the moment stretch, allowing Vivian to feel every ounce of the weight she had created. Then she leaned in. Miss Kane, threats, coercion, signature alteration, this behavior goes far beyond rude or entitled. Vivian blinked, panic sharpening her breathing. Your Honor, please, she whispered. This isn't who I am. Judy's voice didn't soften. Your own words disagree. The gallery held its collective breath, waiting for the hammer to fall. Vivian, desperate now, clung to one last claim of power. You think this scares me? She hissed. I run this city. Judge Judy's expression chilled. Oh, then you won't mind losing what little control you have left. Vivian's declaration I run this city still echoed, arrogant and hollow. But in Judge Judy's courtroom, arrogance wasn't armor. It was evidence. Judge Judy folded her hands, elbows resting lightly on the bench. Her gaze steady enough to pin Vivian to her seat without touching her. Miss Kane, she said, her voice level as a surgeon's scalpel. I'd like you to tell the court exactly what you meant by, I run this city. Vivian tossed her hair, trying to resurrect her swagger. Oh, please. It's an expression. I have influence, connections, people who value my opinion. Influence, Judy repeated, does not place you above the law. Vivian let out a sharp laugh. Law? This isn't real law. This is television arbitration. I'm indulging your little show, Your Honor, but don't pretend this is the Supreme Court. The gallery gasped. The bailiff's shoulders locked into a tense square. Judge Judy didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Miss Kane, let me be perfectly clear. You are in a legal proceeding, televised or not. Your behavior falls under my authority, and your contempt is rapidly escalating. Vivian smirked. Contempt implies I care. I don't. Noted. Judy replied, and your attitude will be addressed. Marcus finally lifted his head. She never cared, Your Honor. She made me feel small, like I didn't matter. Vivian rolled her eyes. You didn't. That single sentence changed the energy in the room. Marcus's face crumpled not dramatically, but in the quiet, breaking way of someone who had spent months holding it together and had just run out of rope. Judge Judy leaned forward. Mr. Hale, you may speak. Marcus swallowed. She told me I was lucky she even considered my business. She said my ideas were laughable. And every time I pushed back, she added fees, changed clauses, threatened to bury me in red tape. I almost closed my store because of her. The gallery murmured, soft sympathy moving like a tide. Vivian scoffed. If he can't handle the pressure of owning a business, that's his problem, not mine. Judy's tone cooled to Arctic. Miss Kane, threatening someone's livelihood is not pressure. It is abuse. Vivian blew out a dismissive breath. Oh, spare me the dramatics. Everyone here is so sensitive. I didn't hurt anyone. Emily's voice cut in, gentle but firm. You did. You hurt people every day. You just don't notice because you don't look at anyone long enough. Vivian's jaw twitched. I'm not here to be attacked by disgruntled employees. You're here, Judy said, because your actions have consequences. Vivian leaned back, crossing her arms like a defiant teenager. Consequences. For what being successful? No, Judy replied. For being cruel, thought landed. Vivian flinched, the word hitting her like unexpected pain. Judge Judy continued. Given your conduct, I'm considering sanctions. Significant ones. Vivian sat up straighter, panic flaring. Sanctions. For speaking the truth. For repeated contempt, Judy corrected, and for undermining the integrity of this courtroom. Vivian scoffed again, but the sound was brittle. You can't sanction me. You don't understand who you're dealing with. I understand perfectly, Judy said. And you will learn today what accountability feels like. Marcus held his breath. Emily watched, hopeful and afraid. Vivian clenched the edges of her seat so hard her knuckles blanched. Then Judge Judy lifted her gavel. I'm about to issue a ruling, she said, and I suggest you brace yourself, Miss Kane. The gavel hadn't even struck yet, but the air already trembled, as if the courtroom itself were bracing for impact. Judge Judy lowered the gavel just enough for Vivian to see her reflection in the polished wood small, distorted and no longer in control. Given the documented evidence, your recorded threats, and your ongoing contempt in this courtroom, I am imposing sanctions. The gallery exhaled collectively. The sound like a gust of wind after a held breath. Vivian leaned forward, blinking rapidly. Sanctions for what? Having an opinion. For attempting to weaponize this court with arrogance and dishonesty. Judy replied, and for the emotional and financial harm inflicted on Mr. Hale. Vivian's polished composure cracked. You can't be serious. This is overreaction. This is bias. No, Judy said firmly. This is accountability. The words hit harder than any raised voice could. She continued. You will reimburse Mr. Hale for every penny you extracted through altered clauses and coercive tactics, and you will be fined for your misconduct today. Vivian's breath hitched. Reimburse. I don't owe him anything. He chose to work with me. He chose to work with the version of you that pretended to be ethical, Judy said. Not the version recorded, threatening to destroy him. The recording echoed in the collective memory of the room. Marcus looked down, tears glossing his eyes, relief simmering through the tremors in his hands. Vivian, desperate, stood abruptly. This is rigged. I won't sit here and let you humiliate me over bad audio clips and the whining of two nobodies. Before she could spiral further, the bailiff stepped into her path silent, immovable. Miss Kane, Judge Judy said, not raising her tone. She didn't need to. You will sit. Or the next sanction will involve removal. Vivian's chest heaved. Her eyes darted between the bailiff and the bench, calculating escape routes in a room that had none. Slowly, almost painfully, she lowered herself back into her chair but, even seated, her fury burned. You're doing this because you're threatened by me, by women like me. She spat. Judy arched a brow. Women like you don't threaten me. They concern me. The gallery hummed with quiet agreement. Your ego, Judy continued, has been allowed to grow unchecked. Today, that stops. Vivian's mouth quivered with rage she couldn't shape into words. Judge Judy tapped her gavel once, not a ruling, just punctuation. The sanctions stand. Vivian's fingers dug into her designer skirt, knuckles white. Then the clerk rose suddenly. "Your Honor, we have a new request to testify." Judy looked up. "From whom?" The clerk nodded toward the courtroom entrance. The doors opened. Footsteps clicked slowly, deliberately, echoing louder than any shout Vivian had delivered. Vivian's entire posture stiffened with instinctive dread. A woman stepped into the light, and Vivian whispered, barely audible, "Mom?" Vivian Caney had faced critics, rivals, employees, and lawsuits, but never this. The moment her mother stepped into the courtroom, the unshakable woman in designer silk began to crumble. Vivian's mother, Eleanor Kane, walked with controlled grace, heels clicking softly like a metronome of judgment. She wore a tailored charcoal suit, understated but impeccable. Everything about her exuded discipline, restraint, and quiet authority. But her eyes, they were trembling. Judge Judy nodded respectfully. "Mrs. Kane, state your name for the record." "Eleanor Margaret Kane," she said, steadying her voice, though emotion strained it. "I'm here to testify on behalf of the truth." Vivian shot up from her seat. "No, absolutely not. You don't get to walk in here and embarrass me." "Sit," Judy ordered. Vivian froze, torn between fury and fear. Then slowly obeyed. Eleanor turned toward her daughter, and the room tightened with anticipation. Like everyone was watching glass slowly crack. "Vivian," she began softly, "I warned you this would happen." Vivian clenched her jaw. "You don't know anything about this case." Eleanor faced Judge Judy instead. "Your Honor, I do." Vivian blinked, confusion flashing brief. Robbie for being replaced by indignation, Judy gestured for Eleanor to continue. "Ever since my daughter was young," Eleanor said, "she has struggled with entitlement, with control, with believing she is above consequence." Vivian's mouth fell open. "You're making me sound unstable." "That's not what happened." "You spoiled me, remember? You encouraged me to be confident." Eleanor shook her head, tears gathering. "I encouraged confidence, Vivian, not cruelty." The word hit Vivian like a physical blow. The gallery leaned closer, hooked by the tension unraveling between mother and daughter. Eleanor continued, voice unsteady. "I protected her from consequences, smoothed every problem, excused every act of disrespect. I told myself I was being a good mother, but I wasn't. I was enabling her worst impulses." Vivian's breathing quickened. "You don't know what you're talking about. You don't understand how hard I've worked." "You've worked hard to maintain an image," Eleanor replied gently, "not to become a better person." Vivian swallowed hard, her sunglasses finally sliding down her nose, revealing eyes drowning in panic and betrayal. Judge Judy interjected. "Mrs. Kane, what makes your testimony relevant to this case?" Eleanor straightened. "Because I've seen this pattern before. Vivian uses intimidation when she feels threatened. She changes facts to fit her narrative. She hurts people without realizing it, or without caring." Vivian slammed her hands on the table. "Stop talking about me like I'm not here." Judy's gavel struck once. "Enough." Eleanor flinched but pushed forward. "I tried to warn her again and again. I told her that one day she would face someone she couldn't manipulate, someone who wouldn't bend." Her eyes locked onto Judge Judy's. "I believe today is that day." Vivian's lips trembled. "Mom, why are you doing this?" "Because I love you," Eleanor whispered. "And love doesn't mean letting you destroy yourself." The courtroom fell silent, every person hanging on the moment her mother exhaled, letting decades of guilt seep out. Judge Judy studied them both, weighing more than legal facts now. Vivian's voice broke. "You don't know everything." Eleanor's eyes widened. "What does that mean?" Judge Judy leaned forward. Miss Kane, clarify. Vivian hesitated, and in that hesitation, fear bloomed. I wasn't acting alone, she whispered, and the courtroom erupted. The words hung in the air like a detonator. Eleanor froze. Judge Judy leaned forward, and Vivian, once untouchable, looked suddenly painfully human. Miss Kane, Judge Judy said, her voice cutting cleanly through the murmurs. You need to explain what you meant now. Vivian's throat bobbed as she swallowed, her rigid posture collapsing inch by inch. For the first time since she'd entered the courtroom, she didn't look like a woman in control. She looked like someone standing at the edge of a cliff she had spent years pretending wasn't there. Her voice cracked. She tried again. I didn't. I wasn't the only one encouraging this behavior. Eleanor's hand flew to her lips. Vivian, what are you talking about? Vivian didn't look at her mother. She stared at the table as if begging it to swallow her whole. People told me I was right, that I deserved more, that I shouldn't tolerate incompetence, that I should push harder, be tougher. Judy narrowed her eyes. Who told you that? Silence. Vivian's breath hitched. My network, she said finally. Certain people. Influential people. Her hands shook slightly, betraying the fear inside. They said Marcus was trying to take advantage of my generosity. They said Emily was sabotaging me. That everyone was jealous. Emily flinched, pain flashing across her features. Vivian looked up at last, eyes glossy, voice trembling on the edge of something raw. You think I just woke up like this? I was taught to believe that people wanted to use me, that the world was out to take what was mine. Judge Judy's expression softened not with sympathy, but with recognition. Fear isn't an excuse for cruelty. Vivian nodded weakly. I know. A shaky breath escaped her. But when you hear something enough times, you start to believe it. Her gaze flicked to Marcus. I thought you were trying to cheat me. I convinced myself you were lying to get better terms. I thought if I didn't push back hard, you'd walk all over me. Marcus blinked in disbelief. Vivian, I just wanted fair treatment. Vivian whispered, I didn't know how to do fair. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. Vivian, why didn't you talk to me? Vivian finally met her mother's gaze, and the moment was a slow, painful unraveling. You weren't someone I could be weak around, she said, voice breaking. You raised me to be perfect, powerful, untouchable. There wasn't room to be anything else. Eleanor staggered back, grief crashing over her. I never meant to make you feel that way. Vivian's composure finally shattered. A single tear slipped down her cheek, so stark against her sculpted facade that the entire courtroom seemed to tilt. But vulnerability is a double-edged blade. Because the moment she cried, guilt cracked into anger. They used me, she muttered, trembling. Someone wanted me to escalate this. Someone fed me lies, pushed me. You all think I'm the villain, but you don't know the whole story. Judge Judy leaned in. Then tell it? Vivian hesitated, eyes darting, hands trembling, breath unsteady. Your Honor, she whispered, you're not the only one who's been manipulated. Those emails. Her voice shook. They didn't come from a stranger. At that moment, the courtroom felt the weight of her words. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed, and Vivian Kane knew she had just stepped on to thin ice. Explain, Judge Judy said. Her voice wasn't raised, but it carried the weight of a hammer sinking into stone. Vivian clasped her hands, knuckles whitening as she tried to gather herself. The emails that encouraged me. They weren't from business partners or friends, she swallowed, throat tight. They came from someone inside my house. Hush rolled across the courtroom. Eleanor's spine straightened, dread flickering through her elegant composure. Inside your house, Vivian? Who? I thought they were anonymous supporters, Vivian continued, voice trembling at the edges. People who respected my image, who pushed me to stay strong. But last night, I looked closer. Judy leaned forward. Closer, how? Vivian took a shaky breath. The writing style, the phrasing. The timestamps, they lined up with someone who would have access to my personal schedule, someone who knew every detail of my day. Emily's eyes widened with realization. Vivian, are you saying yes? She whispered, someone close to me manipulated me. Judge Judy gestured sharply to the clerk. Bring up the emails. The clerk connected a tablet to the courtroom monitor. The screen flickered to life. Subject lines appeared like a trail of breadcrumbs. Don't let him challenge you. Stand firm. Weakness is for the average. Emily is undermining you. Watch her. Push harder. People respect dominance. The gallery murmured in horrified recognition. Judy scanned the messages. Curious wording. Overly flattering. Inflating your ego while feeding paranoia. Vivian nodded faintly. Exactly. Judy tapped the screen. Who had access to your private server? Vivian turned her head slowly, almost mechanically, toward her mother. Eleanor blanched. No, don't look at me like that. Vivian's voice broke. Mom, you're the only person who knows my passwords, the only one who logs into the house system. The emails came from my home IP and the writing. She choked. It's yours. Eleanor staggered a step backward as the courtroom exhaled in shock. Judge Judy watched them both, expression unreadable. Mrs. Kane, is that true? Eleanor's lips trembled. Vivian's sweetheart, listen, answer the question, Judy said. Firmer now. Eleanor's silence was louder than any confession. Vivian pressed a hand to her mouth as if physically holding in heartbreak. Why would you do that? Why would you feed my worst instincts? Tell me everyone was against me. Tears spilled down Eleanor's cheeks. I thought if I pushed you, if I toughened you, you'd succeed. You'd stay strong. You wouldn't break under pressure. Vivian's voice sharpened. You made me worse. Eleanor shook her head desperately. No, I wanted you to rise above people trying to take advantage of you. Vivian snapped. The tension swelled thick, suffocating. Judge Judy broke it with a single command. Mrs. Kane, step forward. Eleanor obeyed, trembling. Judy held up a printed email. Did you send this message? Eleanor hesitated too long. Vivian stared at her mother, betrayal spilling into every trembling breath. Just as Eleanor opened her mouth to speak, Judy raised a hand. One moment before you answer. There's something else the court needs to see. The screen flickered again, revealing a detail that would shatter them both. The monitor glowed with the evidence Judy had cued. A single detail highlighted in yellow, small enough to miss. Devastating enough to destroy whatever illusions remained. Judge Judy tapped her finger against the frozen email header. Mrs. Kane, before you answer, look carefully at this. The entire room leaned in as she pointed to the timestamp, 3:14 a.m., sent from inside the Kanye estate. Vivian frowned. Mom, you always sleep by 10 o'clock. You don't wake up at 3. Eleanor's face flooded with panic. Vivian continued, voice trembling. And the phrasing, Judy added, clicking to zoom in on a line. People like Marcus only understand fear. She looked at Eleanor. That doesn't sound like protection. It sounds like sabotage. Emily inhaled sharply. Marcus shifted uneasily. The gallery murmured like a restless tide. Vivian stared at her mother, horror slowly dawning. You didn't write this to help me, did you? Eleanor's shoulders shook as she tried to speak. Vivian, sweetheart, tell the truth, Judy ordered. Tone unyielding. The silence stretched until it snapped. Eleanor's voice came out in a whisper, strangled by guilt. I was trying to break you down. Vivian's knees buckled. She grabbed the edge of the table. What? Eleanor stepped forward, trembling. You were becoming cruel, out of control, surrounded by people who fed your ego. You wouldn't listen to anyone, not even me. You lied to me. Vivian's voice cracked. You manipulated me. You made me worse, just so I'd hit bottom. A tear slipped down Eleanor's cheek. I thought if you crashed, if you finally faced consequences, you'd see what you were becoming. Vivian flinched like she'd been slapped. You wanted me to fall? Eleanor collapsed into the witness chair, broken. No, I wanted you to change, and I didn't know how else to reach you. Judge Judy's expression shifted, steel softening into something complicated, unreadable. Mrs. Kane, that was reckless, dangerous, and profoundly irresponsible. Eleanor nodded, devastated. I know. Vivian shook her head, hands trembling. You built me into this person. You praised my power. You told me weakness was shameful. And now you punish me for believing you. Eleanor covered her face, sobbing quietly. The gallery sat frozen, caught not in scandal, but in tragedy. Judge Judy finally spoke, voice low. Miss Kane, your mother didn't create your choices. She influenced them, but you, she pointed gently, you walked through every door she opened. Vivian didn't answer. She simply stared at her mother, eyes filled with betrayal so deep it threatened to swallow her whole. Emily looked away, unable to bear the sight. Marcus whispered, no one deserves this, and for the first time. His voice carried compassion toward the woman who had tormented him. Vivian's breathing grew rapid, shoulders hitching, composure eroding into something fragile and desperate. You both think you know me, she choked. But you don't. Neither of you ever cared enough to see who I actually was. Judge Judy leaned forward. Then tell the court who you believe you are, Miss Kane. Vivian's head snapped toward, her eyes burning, voice a razor's edge of anguish. You want the truth, she whispered. This isn't the first time I was protected from consequences. The courtroom froze. Eleanor's head jerked up. Vivian, what are you saying? Vivian swallowed hard. Judge Judy, you were the one who taught me I could get away with anything. The room erupted, then fell into a stunned hush-not because anyone demanded silence. But because every eye snapped toward Judge Judy as Vivian Kane uttered the unthinkable. You taught me I could get away with anything. For the first time since the hearing began, Judge Judy did not respond immediately. The force of Vivian's accusation cut through the courtroom like a sudden wind shift, unexpected, disorienting, impossible to ignore. Judy straightened slowly. Her face was calm, but stillness can be louder than outrage. Even the bailiff hesitated, unsure whether to move or freeze. Miss Kane, Judy said, voice low but steady. You will explain that statement now. Vivian inhaled shakily, bracing herself. Years ago, I was a teenager. I got into a fight with a local business owner. It was stupid, childish. They filed a complaint. Her eyes locked with Judy's, and you dismissed it. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Judy's gaze sharpened, not defensively, but analytically, searching memory. Vivian continued, words tumbling out like a confession she'd been holding for years. It was a small claims issue. I'd berated the woman, damaged her property. You didn't let it go to a hearing. Her voice cracked. You said I needed to get my teenage drama under control. And you sent me home. Judge Judy blinked, the faintest tightening appearing around her eyes. Vivian's hands shook. I expected to be punished. I deserved to be punished. But instead, you let me walk out with a warning. A warning I ignored. Because nothing happened. Because you didn't make anything happen. Eleanor gasped softly. Emily's brows knitted. Marcus watched with quiet understanding. Vivian's next words came out raw. Do you know what I learned that day? That consequences were optional. That if I pushed hard enough, someone would bend. Her voice rose, trembling with truth. And if the Judge Judy, the symbol of accountability, let me off, then who on earth would ever hold me responsible? Judge Judy didn't flinch. She didn't deny it. She simply absorbed it, each syllable sinking beneath the armor of a woman who had lived decades in service of truth, yet remained human enough to err. After a long moment, Judy exhaled. Miss Kane, I remember that case. The courtroom inhaled as one. You were 18, Judy said quietly. Young, angry, and yes, I chose leniency. I believed compassion would guide you further than punishment. Vivon's voice fell to a whisper. It didn't. I see that now, Judy replied. No excuses, no deflection, just truth. But make no mistake, my choice did not create your choices. It may have influenced you. It may have given you the wrong message. But what you became was shaped by many things, including your own decisions. Vivian's throat tightened. So this is my fault. It's your responsibility, Judy corrected gently. Fault is passive. Responsibility is power. Something shifted in the room, less a change in temperature, more a change in tone. A sobering, grounding realization settled over everyone. Eleanor wiped her cheeks. Marcus looked at the floor. Emily's expression softened from hurt toward something like empathy. Vivon stared at Judy, eyes glassy. You think I can just take responsibility now, after everything? No, Judy said. I think you must. Vivian's chin trembled. I don't know how. Judy leaned forward, her voice neither harsh nor forgiving, simply resolute. You start, she said, by telling the truth about what comes next for you. Vivian opened her mouth. But whatever she was about to say died on her tongue as the bailiff suddenly stepped forward. Tension crackling around him. Your Honor, he said urgently, we have a situation developing outside the courtroom, and it concerns Miss Kane. The bailiff's voice wasn't loud, but the urgency in it sliced through the tension like a sharpened edge. Vivon stiffened. Everyone else leaned in, and Judge Judy braced for the next fracture in an already breaking day. Explain. Judge Judy commanded. Her tone steady but taut, the bailiff shifted. Hands clasped behind his back in a posture meant to steady the room. Your Honor, there's media gathering outside a large group and they're here specifically for Miss Kane. A wave of murmurs rippled across the gallery like a rising tide. Vivian's breath hitched. What do you mean they're here for me? They were tipped off, the bailiff said. Someone leaked the contents of the recordings. Vivian's face drained. No, that's impossible. Those files were sealed. Her eyes snapped toward Emily. You leaked them to embarrass me. Emily shook her head firmly. I didn't leak anything, Vivian. I gave them only to the court. Vivian turned to Marcus next, desperation clawing through her voice. You trying to ruin me further. Marcus blinked, startled. I barely knew what was happening today. Why would I invite reporters? Then her eyes landed on the one person she dreaded. Most her mother. Eleanor's expression collapsed before she even spoke. Vivian. No. I didn't call anyone, I swear. Vivian's chest rose and fell too quickly. Breaths sharp, uneven, frantic. Her voice cracked into an anguished whisper. Someone wants me destroyed. You did that to yourself, someone whispered from the gallery. Vivian whipped her head around, eyes blazing. Shut up. The outburst wasn't powerful. It wasn't commanding. It was unraveling. Judge Judy tapped her gavel once, one crisp, firm sound that snapped the room back under control. Miss Kane, she said, this courtroom does not answer to paparazzi or spectators. Sit down. But Vivian couldn't sit. She couldn't move. She stood frozen in her expensive heels as if the floor had turned to glass, terrified to take the next step. "I can't go out there," she whispered. "Not with cameras. Not like this." "Your behavior is what brought them," Judy replied. Vivian's legs suddenly gave out and she dropped into her chair. Hands shaking so violently, her bracelets clattered against the wood. Her eyes darted around the room, wild, cornered. Breaking, Eleanor reached a trembling hand toward her. "Vivon, please don't touch me," Vivian choked. "Don't pretend you care." Her mother recoiled, tears spilling freely. The gallery watched in stunned, painful silence as Vivian folded in on herself. Shoulders curled inward, chin trembling, breath stuttering. The woman who had strutted in like royalty now looked like a frightened child in a world she no longer understood. Judge Judy's voice softened only slightly. "Ms. Kane, the presence of media does not change the legal proceedings. We will continue." Vivian shook her head violently. I can't do this. You don't understand. If they film this, if they see me like this, my reputation, my career, everything." "Your reputation was built on fear," Judy replied quietly. "And fear is not a foundation that lasts." Vivian pressed her palms against her eyes, a sob escaping a small, broken sound she couldn't contain. Emily looked away to give her dignity. Marcus did too. Only Judge Judy watched her fully nod with triumph, not with cruelty, but with inevitability. "Miss Kane," Judy said gently but firmly, "look at me." Vivian forced herself to lift her head. Tears streaked her face, breath shaking, mascara smudged into bruised shadows. "This," Judy said, "is what accountability feels like. It is painful, but it is necessary." Vivian's lips trembled. "I don't know if I can take it." "You can," Judy replied. "And you will." Vivian's face crumpled, every wall shattering at once. Before she could speak, the courtroom door swung open again. The bailiff stepped quickly inside and whispered urgently to the judge. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. "Miss Kane," she said, turning back to Vivian with a severity that made the room tighten, "your behavior has just escalated this situation further." Judge Judy said, then exhaled. "You've left me with no choice." The words "no choice" dropped like a hammer. Vivian lifted her head, red-eyed and trembling, and something inside her snapped back into place and not strength, not clarity, but defiance. Judge Judy folded her hands, her expression carved from stone. "Miss Kane, the bailiff informs me that your outburst in the hallway earlier, before this hearing began, was captured on security footage and it was problematic." Vivian's breath hitched. "What footage?" "You shoved a producer," Judy said flatly, "and threatened to have the entire show canceled." A murmur sliced through the gallery. Vivian's lips parted in disbelief. "That was taken out of context. He was blocking my path." "I told him you told him," Judy interrupted, reading from a paper. "If you don't move, I'll ruin your career and everyone you've ever worked with." Vivian froze. Emily looked down, wounded but not surprised. Marcus exhaled, a quiet, heavy sound. Eleanor covered her mouth. Judy continued, "Given your conduct today, your threats, your tampering, your outbursts, this pattern is escalating." Vivian's eyes flashed with something primal. No, I won't let you twist this. You're trying to destroy me. You're enjoying this? Enjoying." Judy arched a brow. Miss Kane's accountability is not entertainment. Vivian lurched to her feet. "Well, it's humiliating. You want me to just sit here while everyone judges me, while cameras wait outside to tear me apart? While my mother," she shot Eleanor a venomous glare, "pretends she didn't orchestrate half of this." "Sit," Judy ordered. Vivian didn't. Instead, she kicked her chair backward. It clattered across the floor, spinning on one leg before crashing down. Gasps erupted from every corner of the room. The bailiff stepped forward immediately. "Ma'am, don't touch me." Vivian screamed, the sound cracking like glass under pressure. She pointed wildly at the gallery. "All of you think I'm a monster. You think you're better than me? You have no idea what it's like to live a life where everyone expects perfection." Her voice rose, shrill and jagged. "I built myself. I clawed my way into power, and I will not be dragged down by people who couldn't survive a single day of my standards." "Vivian," Eleanor whispered, trembling. "Please stop." "No," Vivian spun toward her. "You don't get to tell me to stop. Not after what you did. Not after everything you manipulated." Emily stood slowly. "Vivian, you're hurting yourself." "Shut up," Vivian spat, tears streaking through her mascara. "All you ever did was misunderstand me." Emily said softly. "I understood you better than you think," Emily continued. "That was the problem." Vivian shook her head violently, like a child refusing reality. "I am not the villain here." Judge Judy rose not quickly, not theatrically, but with the kind of authority that drained the oxygen from the room. "Miss Kane," she said, "you are out of order. Completely and dangerously out of order." Vivian screamed back, her voice cracking. "You can't control me." The gallery recoiled. Even Eleanor braced herself. Judge Judy didn't flinch. She leaned forward, eyes cold as steel. "Bailiff," she said, voice low and final. "Educate her." The bailiff reached for his cuffs as Vivian staggered backward, eyes wide, breath trembling. Finally realizing the moment she'd never believed would come was unavoidable. Power never protects forever. The bailiff moved. Vivian froze, half-raised hands trembling, designer bracelets chiming like warning bells. In a single heartbeat, the woman who claimed she ran the city realized she couldn't even run this room. "Ma'am," the bailiff said gently. Firmly, "Turn around." Vivian shook her head, retreating until her back hit the council table. Panic flooded her features, raw and unfiltered, cracking through every layer of practiced poise. "No, wait, please," she whispered, voice breaking into pieces. "Don't do this. Not in front of them. Not like this." The bailiff didn't raise his voice, didn't rush. Authority can be quiet and still be absolute. "Miss Kane, hands behind your back." Vivian looked around desperately, first at Emily, who lowered her gaze, then at Marcus, whose expression held heartbreak, not triumph, and finally at her mother. Eleanor stepped forward, tears shaking her voice. "Vivian, please cooperate. Just let this be the moment it stops." Vivian's chin quivered. "You did this. You made me this way." Eleanor closed her eyes, guilt rippling across her face like a shadow. "I played a part, but so did you. And this," she gestured to the cuffs, to the judge, to the courtroom. "This is the moment you finally face it." Vivian's shoulders collapsed inward. The bailiff gently took her wrists. There was no struggle. Not now. She had no fight left. The metallic click echoed through the courtroom, a sound sharper than any insult she'd thrown, more final than any threat she'd made. When the cuffs locked, Vivian inhaled sharply, not in pain, but in realization. Judge Judy, still standing, watched her with a gaze neither cruel nor kind, simply resolute. "Miss Kane," she said, "the handcuffs are not punishment. They are protection for this court and for the people you endangered with your escalating behavior. You forced this consequence." Vivian nodded weakly, mascara streaks carving dark lines down her cheeks. "I never thought it would come to this." "That," Judy replied, "is the cost of believing you're untouchable." She returned to the bench, lifting her final ruling. "Mr. Hale," she said to Marcus, whose eyes shimmered, "you will receive full financial reimbursement, plus damages for the hardship Miss Kane caused you." Marcus covered his mouth, relief shuddering through him. "Miss Rhodes," Judy continued, "your courage in providing evidence ensured the truth prevailed." Emily nodded, tears gathering but unshed. Then Judy turned to Vivian one last time. "Miss Kane, your case will be referred for further review by the appropriate authorities. Your attempts to intimidate, manipulate, and falsify documents cannot be ignored." Vivian lowered her head. No denial, no argument, just hollow, quiet acceptance. Eleanor broke into soft sobs, but Vivian didn't reach for her not yet. Maybe not ever. The bailiff gently guided Vivian toward the exit. She didn't resist. She didn't look back at the gallery. Only once, at the very last moment, did she turn her head toward Judge Judy. Her voice was tiny. "Is there anything left for someone like me?" Judge Judy's gaze softened with something that wasn't forgiveness, but wasn't condemnation either. "There is always something left," she said. "If you choose to build it honestly." Vivian swallowed, nodding as the bailiff led her away heel by heel, step by step. A queen leaving her crumbling throne. When the doors closed behind her, the silence that followed wasn't triumphant. It was necessary. Judge Judy set down her gavel with a final, echoing thud.